shocking was Amanda's murder?
This particular case was very shocking. Female at 20 years old, stabbed to death in a horrific way.
It was a Nike shoe print that was on the scene. It was about a size 7.5.
Had a lot of friends and co-workers. She was loved by many people.
He was definitely very controlling and very erratic. He was one of the suspects, definitely on our radar screen.
We had a lot of times where we thought we were getting close to a possible suspect, and he would come to a dead end.
What did we miss? Where do we go from here?
What were you thinking when he told you that he had watched Amanda die?
He was definitely not going home. We were making an arrest on him, and we had all the evidence we needed.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé brings us to Chicopee, Massachusetts, a small city outside of Springfield. This quiet New England community became the unlikely scene of a shocking murder when a popular waitress was killed inside of her own home. Would a hidden clue be the key to finally solving the case? On August 26, around 6:45 p.m., a frantic 911 call came into the Chicopee Police Department.
911, what is the emergency?
From a man named Seth Green. When Seth called 911, what did he tell the operator?
He's, panically saying that he had just found his girlfriend on the floor in a pool of blood.
His girlfriend was 20-year-old Amanda Plass. Seth told the operator he discovered her in the kitchen of her apartment and believed she had been stabbed to death. Police rushed to the scene and were shocked by what they saw when they arrived. Amanda had been the victim of a violent homicide.
It's a horrific scene. She was stabbed multiple times, and it appeared that there was a struggle.
The kitchen was covered in blood spatter. The table had been pushed out of place, and there was a dent on the side of the refrigerator as if Amanda had been forcibly thrown into it. It was clear she had done everything she could to try and save her life, even struggling on the floor with her attacker until her very last breath.
It was almost like she was on the floor and had done somewhat like a snow angel in blood itself, trying to fight for her life.
Investigators searched the home and quickly ruled out robbery as a motive.
Her apartment was pristine clean, and there was nothing that should have been disturbed in the apartment because she was kind of a neat freak.
Although most of the apartment was undisturbed, detectives discovered a broken window in the back room leading to the porch. At first, they wondered if that was how the killer got into Amanda's apartment, but crime scene technicians determined it had been broken from the inside. The shattered glass on the floor revealed a key piece of evidence.
We did see some palm prints.
Investigators lifted the partial palm prints from the glass and moved into the kitchen to collect more evidence.
We were able to see that there was a bloody footprint on that kitchen floor.
And since the blood in the kitchen had dried by the time investigators arrived on the scene, they believe the footprints belonged to the killer.
And there's only one set of footprints that's there. It's consistent, a right and left shoe print.
Expert analysis of the footprint determined it had been made by a Nike running shoe. When the print was measured for size, investigators were shocked.
It was a size 7.5.
So what was so surprising about that?
There's not many men that wear that size sneaker.
Amanda's body was removed from the scene and taken to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy.
The cause of death was multiple stab wounds.
The medical examiner counted 15 wounds in total, 7 of which could have been fatal. Since it was clear Amanda had tried to defend herself, Sergeant Gibbons knew there was a possibility that the suspect's DNA was on her body.
She put up a fight. We might want to get the clippings from her underneath her fingernails.
His instincts paid off. The nail clippings provided police with an unknown male DNA profile.
And it was a home run because that was one of the reasons why we were able to get DNA. That was the DNA skin that she was able to scratch and fight for her life.
But in order to catch Amanda's killer, police would first have to find a suspect to compare the evidence to. With no clear motive and no sign of forced entry into the apartment, detectives became convinced the murder was personal and quickly turned their attention to Seth, Amanda's distraught boyfriend. Was he a witness or their first prime suspect?
And we didn't know if he was crying for himself or he was crying because, this had happened.
Police in Chicopee, Massachusetts had just discovered the body of 20-year-old Amanda Plass, brutally murdered inside her own home. It was a crime that shocked the city of Chicopee.
It is very horrific and very devastating. We know that we have to get rolling and try to solve this case. It came from a nice family in Chicopee. Had a lot of friends, and she was loved by many people.
While detectives brought her boyfriend Seth Green to the police station for questioning, investigators also tried to create a timeline of Amanda's last moments alive. What were Amanda's plans supposed to be that afternoon?
What we learned was Amanda Plass, 20 years old, was getting ready to go to work at a local ice cream establishment here in Western Mass called Friendly Restaurants.
A neighbor told police he had seen Amanda getting her mail outside of her home around 4 p.m. When Seth called 911 at 6:45, the blood in the kitchen was already dry, so they estimated that Amanda had been murdered sometime between 4 and 5:30 p.m. Detectives wanted to know where Seth Green was during that time.
He was one of the suspects, definitely on our radar screen. His whole scenario was that he worked a roofing company.
Seth told detectives that normally he would be off work by 5 p.m. and would drive Amanda to her job. But that day, he was asked to stay late.
We were very suspect of that this one particular day of every day this week, of the 5 days this week, that this now being Friday, that you didn't pick her up. It was very unusual.
Throughout the interview, Seth was highly emotional and kept saying how much he loved Amanda, even though they had just started dating.
He was passionate about how much he loved her. And it was kind of unusual that this passion that came out during the interview. But at the same time, we looked at that is crocodile tears or not. And we didn't know if he was crying for himself or he was crying because, this had happened.
Seth agreed to give a DNA sample, a palm print sample, and he also let detectives measure his feet. In the end, his DNA and palm print weren't a match to the evidence, and the shoe prints couldn't have been his either. Is it because of the size? What size foot did Seth have?
Seth was wearing boots. He was about a size 11.5 or 12 in his boots.
After being eliminated as a suspect, Seth told police they should be looking at Amanda's ex-boyfriend, Jesse, with whom she worked. He said the day before Amanda's murder, Jesse went ballistic when Seth came into the restaurant.
Jesse actually got fired from Friendly's on that Thursday because he really flipped out when he saw the two of them kissing, and he made some threats like he's gonna come back to her apartment, she'll see what he can do and things like that.
Police brought Jesse in for questioning. He said he was with his friend Kyle out of town all day Friday. But when police asked Kyle to verify his alibi, he could not.
Kyle finally came in with his parents and said, nope, we were at the beach down in Connecticut, but Jesse wasn't with us.
Detectives were now even more suspicious of Jesse.
I would definitely say Jesse was a prime suspect.
When confronted, he broke down and admitted that he had lied because he had actually taken his parents' car without their permission and didn't want to get in trouble.
Ultimately, he ended up going to a place called Genro's to cash his check. And while we actually have film footage of him showing up at Genro's just about 4:30 p.m.
He was there for about 30 minutes. Says the place was on the other side of town. It would have been almost impossible for him to have committed the murder. Still, investigators asked Jesse for samples of his DNA, palm prints, and shoe prints. And once again, there was no match.
And Jesse also had a larger foot as well. I believe Jesse was like a size 10.5.
The case had hit another dead end. Police continued following leads until eventually there were none left.
We had over 50 DNA samples that we had submitted to the lab, and we're not getting anything back hitting on the DNA that was underneath her fingerprints.
And then more time began to pass. So what were you thinking?
What did we miss? Where do we go from here?
Those questions haunted Detective Gibbons for 2 years. And then one day, as he went through the crime scene pictures for what felt like the millionth time, he saw it. A tiny clue that had been missed.
You notice this whiteboard in the background, and it has on the whiteboard, it's got Dennis was here, 8/11/11.
Would that tiny piece of writing finally lead him to Amanda's killer?
And then we found out that Dennis actually lived maybe a block and a half away from that scene itself. Everything started coming together.
The Amanda Plass murder had gone unsolved for more than 2 years, but detectives now had a new lead. Dennis was here. 8/11/11 was written on a dry erase board just 2 weeks before her murder.
So it's like, wow, Dennis was here. Someone wrote Dennis was here. And it was like a new name. So it's like, where do we go at from here?
Detectives quickly got to work trying to figure out who Dennis could be.
How were you able to link Amanda and Dennis?
We were able to quickly, go through records, phone records, and, find that there was a Dennis that was in touch with her through the phone, her calling history.
Not only had Amanda been communicating with a man named Dennis Rosa Roman around the time of her murder, the same Dennis also lived close to her home in 2011.
And then we found out that Dennis actually lived maybe a block and a half away from that scene itself.
Investigators went to speak with Rosa Roman. They approached him as he was walking down the street and asked him point blank about Amanda Plass.
I just want to talk to you about a girl named Amanda Plass. And he says, I don't know any Amanda.
It was clear Rosa Roman was nervous, and detectives caught a huge break when they saw him light a cigarette.
So what was going through your mind when you saw him smoke that cigarette?
I'm looking at that cigarette as possible DNA to get off the cigarette.
As Sergeant Gibbons started asking more questions, Rosa Roman said he had to go. Gibbons then did everything he could to try and stall him.
So I was basically buying time, and ultimately Dennis is getting frustrated, and he drops his cigarette.
Sergeant Gibbons had his partner go to the car and get a bag and rubber gloves. He then picked up the cigarette and brought it back to the station to send off for DNA testing. Early the next morning, he saw that Rosa Roman had called him multiple times.
He is blowing my phone up at 6:30 in the morning. I got to talk to you. Why did you guys grab my cigarette?
Sergeant Gibbons told him if he wanted to come in for an interview, he would explain everything. Rosa Roman agreed, and later that morning sat down with detectives. This time he said he did know Amanda, but had never been in her apartment before.
I met at a local convenience store, small grocery store.
Rosa Roman denied having anything to do with her murder. As the interview continued, Detective Fitzgerald noticed something about his feet. He was wearing a pair of Nike running shoes, and they seemed pretty small.
During the interview, I asked him, "Hey, Dennis, I like your sneakers. What size shoe do you wear?" With that, he said, "It's 7."
Detectives were shocked.
We believe he actually had the same sneakers from the crime scene on him that day.
Investigators were closing in on their killer. They just needed the DNA results to prove they were right. And that came the next day.
I was almost floored when they told us, you got it, you got the match. And now we were able to go back into the room knowing that, yep, we have the right person.
When confronted with the DNA match, Rosa Roman changed his story once again.
Where he says, okay, I was there, I saw her die. And when he says I saw her die, we knew we had him because he had never admitted being there. And this is the first person that admitted that they were in the apartment. And he says that he saw her take her last breath.
Investigators weren't buying his new story that he saw her take her last breath but didn't kill her. The partial palm print was also a match to Dennis Rosa Roman. He was arrested and charged with the murder of Amanda Plass.
You know, you never know which way it's going to go for a jury. You know, you never know if it's going to be a solid case. In your mind, you think you have a good solid case, but you just never know.
In June of 2016, almost 5 years after Amanda Plass's brutal murder, Dennis Rosa Roman finally stood trial. After 8 days of testimony and 5 hours of deliberation, the jury announced it had reached a verdict.
The court has hereby sentenced you to the fourth term of your natural life without the possibility of parole.
The case that had haunted police for so long was finally over.
But you just never know. And you've been at that dance so many times that it says, you know, you're just waiting for a jury to come back and say guilty or not guilty. And, you know, for 12 unanimous people to see the same thing that we saw was just like a redemption. Like, wow, we could take a breath.
This is such a sad case, a senseless homicide. Should have never happened.
It was a sad day for the family. But it was a redemption type of day that finally truth was served, that they finally were able to see the light and come to a conclusion.
Dennis Rosa Roman was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. To this day, he has never admitted to killing Amanda, and the motive is still unclear. And now it's time for today's Safety Spotlight. Amanda Plass was adored by friends and family and had a bright future ahead of her. She was tragically stabbed to death by someone she thought was a friend. Personal safety is a significant concern for everyone, and being proactive can make a big difference. Trust your instincts. Listen to that inner voice warning you that something is just not right. And when something feels off, or if you sense a threat, trust yourself and do what you can to avoid or prepare for a potential confrontation. And police say call 911 if you feel at all in danger. And if it turns out that there wasn't a threat, it's okay. It's their job to keep you safe. And if you are violently confronted, your priority should be to escape, not to engage in a physical altercation. Put as much distance between yourself and the attacker as possible. And if you can, consider carrying a personal alarm on a keychain that can emit a loud sound to attract attention and possibly deter an attacker. And since every case is unique, you can learn more about avoiding these risks by reading The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker, the nation's leading expert on personal safety. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe. Was there any question this was a murder?
Travis Seberg is obviously deceased. His whole upper face was covered with blood.
I roll up, I see Detective Gladstone. I knew it was a murder at that point.
An affair that Travis was having with a neighbor that had been going on for several years.
If he had enemies, we weren't aware of any, and it wasn't a kind of situation that Travis would get into where, guns would be involved.
Was the waiting the worst part?
I was pretty much helpless. There was nothing I could do about it to find out who did it.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to rural Washington, where a man was found shot to death in his home. The crime was shocking in its depravity and callousness. Robbery appeared to be the motive, as several items were missing. But as investigators looked closer at the life of Travis Sieber, it wasn't that simple. Travis had many girlfriends, some of them married, and there was the possibility that the killer was a wronged man seeking revenge. It was the evening of March 18th in the rural mountain community of Riderwood, Washington. A distraught woman discovered her boyfriend dead on the floor of his home and called 911.
The caller reported that she found her on and off boyfriend laying in a pool of blood in the kitchen of his home.
911 emergency, what are you reporting?
He's dead on the kitchen floor.
Okay. He's laying on the kitchen floor?
Dead.
The Cowlitz County Sheriff's Office responded and found 47-year-old Travis Sieber shot in the face at point-blank range.
The patrol officers that were working that morning arrived on scene. They went into the house and they discovered Travis Sieber laying in a pool of blood in his kitchen. It wasn't obvious to them at that point where his wounds were, but they saw that he was obviously deceased. His whole upper face was covered with blood, so it was difficult to discern where the injury was.
The bloody scene suggested that the victim had been shot by an intruder during a home invasion.
Riderwood is a retirement community of just a few hundred people. Travis lived 15 miles, 20 miles from a populated area, so it's very rural Cowlitz County where he lives, and we have very little crime that occurs in this area.
What did you find around the body?
They discovered a .45 caliber casing next to Mr. Sieber. It was obvious this was not a suicide, as there was no firearm found next to Mr. Sieber. As investigators looked around the home, they noticed that his digital video recorder, his DVR, was missing. His cell phone was missing.
Detective Gladson examined the body, looking for clues to explain how the murder went down.
Based on the evidence we saw at the scene, it was very apparent that Travis was shot in the face. There was a .45 caliber casing next to him that gave us that indication, and there was no firearm anywhere in the kitchen where Travis's body was, and with the back door being open, and there was blood spatter on portions of the door. That told us is that when Travis was shot in the face, the crime certainly occurred with the perpetrator entering through the back door.
Police searched the home for evidence that might tell them who had killed Travis.
We're looking for any type of evidence. It could be cigarette butts, it could be shoe impressions, fingerprints. We're looking for anything that might have been left at the scene by the suspect. We're looking for any type of tire tread patterns of somebody who entered his driveway.
There was a video surveillance system, but some of it appeared to have been removed.
He had cameras mounted around his house on top of having a DVR systems. Anytime a crime happens in the presence of security cameras, we're certainly always hopeful that we'll have video evidence of the crime. The items that were stolen from the house were Travis's DVR. It was clear that the suspect was concerned that perhaps this crime was captured on video. Travis's phone was stolen from the scene as well.
Investigators walked through the house, hoping the intruder had been careless and left some clues to their identity. On the floor, they saw an envelope.
In Travis's bedroom, some mail items were stepped on, and a very clear shoe impression was left on that envelope.
Police questioned Travis's girlfriend, Kian Maloche, about their relationship. She explained that theirs was an on-again, off-again affair. It was a revelation that detectives made note of.
The caller that called in this incident was Travis's girlfriend, Kian. And Kian Maloche, being an on and off relationship with Travis and the person who discovered him, she certainly became my first person of interest in this case.
As detectives documented the crime scene, some of Travis Sieber's family arrived, devastated to learn of his death. They included Travis's brother-in-law, a detective with the Thurston County Sheriff's Office.
The initial call was from my mother-in-law that Travis had been killed, and that law enforcement was on scene at his house, and that's all she had. So my wife and I headed out there. I roll up, I see Detective Gladstone and other detectives that I'm familiar with when they helped me with my case when I did a homicide case in Thurston County. Because of my position and my rapport, they were able to share specifics about what happened. So I knew who these people were that were investigating my brother-in-law's now homicide. So we knew it was a murder at that point.
Detective Ben Elkins wasn't working the case, but his trained detective mind went into overdrive.
It was surreal. I mean, I was a little emotional, but you put that shield on. If he had enemies, we weren't aware of any, and it wasn't a kind of situation that Travis would get into where, guns would be involved. He didn't do any type of narcotics. He wasn't in the criminal element. He just a very simple man. Travis was easygoing. He wasn't very well off. He had very little. He loved fishing, loved hunting. He loved taking care of chickens. He loved doing the bees where he'd make honey. He was more of a naturalistic person where he liked doing things outside. He was out just to enjoy life.
Detective Gladson then learned information about Travis's private life. According to Kian, he was a prolific online dater and had many girlfriends, some of them married. But one liaison in particular stood out.
On the day of the crime, Kian told me of an affair that Travis was having with a neighbor. That affair had been going on for several years. The husband was aware that the affair was going on several years ago, but he thought it had stopped. I learned from Kian that that affair had not stopped, and it was ongoing, and they had even had recent relationships.
I couldn't figure out why. It's like the only thing we could have thought of is, if anything, well, maybe he met this gal and there was some type of jealousy thing, but other than that, it was like there was nothing that made sense for a motive of why he would be killed.
With this news of an extramarital affair, the investigation pivoted in another direction. Detectives needed to determine if an angry husband or a jilted wife may have been the killer.
The husband was aware that the affair was going on.
Investigators discovered that Travis Sieber was a frequent visitor to online dating sites where he met many women, some who were married. And they learned that a married neighbor had been seeing Travis right up until his murder. Detectives contacted that neighbor, Lisa, and her husband, Dieter, to find out if they could be involved.
When you spoke with the husband, did he know about his wife's affair?
The husband was aware that the affair was going on several years ago, but he thought it had stopped. I had concerns that perhaps the husband had uncovered that the affair was ongoing and decided to put a stop to it. So we definitely looked at Travis's neighbors as persons of interest right off the bat as well. What I learned from speaking with Travis's neighbor, Lisa Krause, was that he had been in communication with her recently. I could see that there was some friction between the two in recent days, and she wasn't being entirely truthful with me about how friendly the relationship currently was. That certainly raised some concerns for me as well.
So at that point, were the husband and wife cleared of any involvement?
Her husband, I interviewed him as well that same night of the murder, and he was an elderly gentleman who knew about the affair years prior. He seemed like a very truthful guy. He was very forthright, provided me with whatever information I wanted. We were able to rule those two out as suspects in this crime in short order as well.
Meanwhile, the autopsy of Travis Sieber produced information that matched the shell casing found next to the body.
The medical examiner found that there was a .45 caliber bullet lodged at the base of the skull, and that was ultimately removed and turned over to investigators.
Police were able to quickly clear Travis's girlfriend and several other women of any involvement in his murder. Unfortunately, the security DVR had been stolen, so the intruder couldn't be identified.
The goal in a homicide is always not to let the case go cold. And you can't help but have a thought in the back of your head that this case could go cold. And that was a concern certainly I had after 3 weeks of chasing leads that were dead ends.
Meanwhile, the inability to identify the perpetrator was pure torture for Travis Sieber's family.
I was pretty much helpless. There was nothing I could do to find out who did it. I was on the outside. I mean, I was like everybody else. I was a family member. As much as I wanted to, it would be a conflict of interest. And the last thing I wanted to do was cause any problems. When we found out who did it, that person would be held accountable. Detective Gladstone would say, hey, we're still working it. Just kind of reassurance that they're working it. They're doing what they possibly can do and following whatever leads they have. That was a problem. They didn't have a lot of leads.
And just when the investigation appeared to be stymied, Detective Gladson got an unexpected phone call from the Centralia Police Department.
Was that the moment the case really turned in another direction?
After 3 weeks of following up on lead after lead after lead, and every lead came to a quick dead end, I received a call from Officer Haggerty that he had somebody in custody that had some knowledge of the murder that occurred 3 weeks earlier in Riderwood.
Before Detective Gladson was able to even interview the man in custody, another phone tip brought in even more news. The investigation that had been stalled suddenly blew up.
I learned that a co-conspirator on the murder was in custody. Her name was Elizabeth Rogan. She had direct knowledge of the homicide because she was actually present when the murder took place.
Detective Gladson immediately met with Liz Rogan and pressed her for what she knew about the murder. Realizing she was in a tight spot, Rogan proceeded to give up how Travis Sieber was killed by her boyfriend, Tony.
What did Liz say happened?
Liz painted this picture that she went to Riderwood with a guy by the name of Tony, who was her boyfriend, and that she did not know he was going to shoot Travis until it happened.
Liz did everything she could to distance herself from the murder and wouldn't give Tony's full name, but she was willing to speak without an attorney present. Detective Gladson knew he'd need to use every trick in the book to get the truth out of her.
He was fully prepared to spend the rest of his life in prison.
The Cowlitz County Sheriff's Office had identified a person of interest in the murder of Travis Sieber. While Liz Rogan was being held on another charge, detectives were able to interview her in jail, and they leaned hard on her to give up the killer, her boyfriend Tony. But then, Rogan dropped a bombshell.
What did Liz say that really started to put it all together?
I asked Liz how Tony knew where Travis lived. Liz indicated that she had been to Travis's house before, so Liz did the driving and she drove to Travis's house.
Rogan told police that she had met Travis Sieber through an online dating site before the murder. And one night, while driving around with Tony, he saw contacts from the dating site on her phone and demanded that they go rob Travis. She claimed that she was unaware it would be more than a robbery.
What brought you up to that house? Can you tell me about that?
Tony kept saying he wanted to rob him, and I kept telling him, no, I don't want any part of it.
Did
I have that gun.
Where is the gun?
I don't know.
She enjoyed the life of crime, but didn't want to get her hands too dirty, and this murder was no different. She participated in this crime fully, but of course tried to stay back from the murder itself.
I've lived in terror for the last 3 Sorry if I'm a little emotional. I'm trying to do the right thing here.
Would never take responsibility for her role in this.
Detectives informed Rogan she was going to be charged with murder, and that's all it took for her to give up her boyfriend, Tony. His name was Anthony DePusey Green, whom she had met through an online dating site. Tony had also been arrested on a burglary charge and was in jail when detectives interviewed him.
When I talked to Tony, he didn't seem fearful that he was under investigation for murder whatsoever. He was fully prepared to spend the rest of his life in prison, and he ultimately decided that he did not want to talk to me.
This was a crime of opportunity, and investigators knew Liz and Tony were the perpetrators, but they wanted more. And the shoe print on the envelope found in Travis's home was the ticket.
Were you able to match the footprint with Tony's shoe?
They found that tread pattern to belong to a FUBU midnight shoe. Credit cards that were stolen, found in Liz's car, they were used multiple times prior to the murder in places where they would have surveillance systems. I found 5 different videos of Tony, and all 5 of those videos show him wearing FUBU midnight shoes.
So when these people were finally charged with Travis's murder, what did it mean to you personally?
Relieving to bring justice to the family of Travis, and that the person who murdered Travis will be held accountable, to know that justice is going to be served. Tony's just a very, very dangerous man. If he were to be released today, I have no doubt in my mind that he would murder somebody again.
In 2020, Anthony DePusey Green and Elizabeth Rogan faced murder charges in the death of Travis Sieber. Liz Rogan rolled over on her boyfriend and blamed him for the murder.
Okay, who did the shooting, Liz? Anthony?
He walked into that house and he shot him.
She pled guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 15 years. Anthony DePusey Green pled guilty to first-degree murder and received 45 years.
Detective Gladstone and that whole department did a phenomenal job. Very happy with the outcome, and I was very relieved. It definitely put closure, especially to my mother-in-law. You know, for us it was good. It was good closure, but most definitely for my mother-in-law, because if it would have went, you know, a year, 2 more years down the road, it probably would have killed her.
I know they were hurting, they were reeling. It's got to be super difficult knowing that someone murdered your son in cold blood and the murderer is still at large. It must be an awful feeling for the family, and it was just great to bring them the closure that they deserved.
This was a case that saw a law enforcement family whose job is to find justice, hoping for it themselves. And now it's time for our safety spotlight. Travis Sieber's family was devastated to learn he had been brutally murdered in what appeared to be a home invasion robbery connected to his extensive online dating history. Liz Rogan met Travis on a dating website, and when she showed up on his doorstep asking to use his bathroom, he politely and unknowingly let his murderer into his home. While online dating is currently one of the most popular ways in which people find love, the process is not without risk. To minimize these risks, consider following these tips to keep you safe. Protect your personal information by avoiding sharing sensitive details like your home address and phone number until you get to know the person well. Look for inconsistencies in the person's profile and communication. Be wary of accounts with overly perfect photos or vague details, as they could be fake. Before meeting a date, you can perform a simple background check online for a small fee. Arrange to meet in well-lit public areas like cafes or restaurants. Avoid secluded locations for initial meetings, and let a friend or family member know where you're going, who you're meeting, and when you expect to return. We all want to be loved, but our safety comes first. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe. What did police know about Julie?
Julie's mother reported that Julie was supposed to be picking her daughter up, and that was the last she'd heard from her.
She was leaving with a man named James. Nobody had ever heard of him.
He was stalking her, and so we told her, please don't be alone with him.
When I lifted that section, underneath was what appeared to be like a shallow grave.
How do you explain his behavior?
That was his way of separating himself from Julie's mess.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to Austin, Texas, where a young mother left her home and was never seen again. Her sudden disappearance was out of character, as were the texts she sent, professing love for a new mystery man. If not for the efforts of her family and investigators, a killer might have eluded justice that the woman and her child deserved.
The date was March the 26th, and 21-year-old Julie Ann Gonzalez had the day off and planned to meet with her family in Austin after she picked up her daughter. But for some reason, Julie never showed, and texts from her family went unanswered. The next day, Julie sent a curious text and announced that she was moving to Colorado. Julie's family was so concerned, they searched the neighborhood looking for her, and 2 days later, Julie's car was found abandoned in a Walgreens parking lot.
We had a very close relationship because Julie was a surprise coming into the family. Initially, we weren't expecting her arrival. And I was about 15 when she entered the world, so kind of got to grow up with her, see her grow over the years. She set goals for herself, and she always made sure that she accomplished those goals. She was very driven to be successful in her own way. She graduated when she was a junior because she started attending college at the same time she was in high school, and she did that. Even with Layla in tow, she was able to do what she set out to do.
I met Julie's mother with Julie's aunt, and they wanted to report Julie missing. Julie was supposed to be picking her daughter up. Julie's mother reported that Julie went to pick up her daughter, and that was the last she'd heard from her.
One thing that I did notice about her car, the passenger seat was pushed all the way back, like someone was laying in it, and that was not normal.
Officer Brooks learned that Julie was to pick up her daughter at her estranged husband's house, who lived 3 blocks away. The officer drove to speak with George De La Cruz, and Julie's family went as well. It was as if De La Cruz was expecting them.
What was his demeanor like?
He came right outside and was completely cooperative. He said that when Julie came to pick up their daughter, that she just decided that he needed to keep her with him.
Told him that she was leaving for that weekend and that if he could watch Layla, and she would get in contact with him when she returned. It was completely uncharacteristic of Julie to just leave so abruptly.
During their conversation, Officer Brooks noticed marks on De La Cruz's face.
While I was talking to George, I noticed that he had some what looked like fingernail scratches on his face. And as a father of young children myself, I pretty much just equated that to possible toddler scratches. I didn't think much of it at that moment. Toddlers have tiny little fingernails and they're razor sharp.
The Austin police officer asked to inspect De La Cruz's home and saw nothing out of place. In the backyard was a small shed. Looking inside, the officer observed newly cut plywood covered the floor. Officer Brooks lifted the plywood to see what it covered.
I looked down and it looked like about a 4x4 foot section of plywood had been cut out with maybe a circular saw. And so when I lifted that 4x4 foot section of plywood, underneath was what appeared to be like a shallow grave. It was about 2 feet wide and maybe a foot deep.
So how did he explain the hole under his shed?
He said that trough was digging to install plumbing, and that made no sense.
The officer wrapped up the inspection and left the premises. At this point, he didn't know what to make of Julie's disappearance.
Part of me still just believes that there has to be a logical explanation. We couldn't account for her, and just finding a car unattended and the owner of it is nowhere to be found, and all these behaviors are being described as uncharacteristic.
A missing persons report was submitted and forwarded to an Austin police detective. Meanwhile, Julie's mother, her aunt, and the rest of her family anxiously awaited some kind of word from her. The next day, she texted them and posted on her social media account a cryptic explanation.
What was it she was trying to say to her family with the post and text?
The text messages were that she was tired of everything that was going on here, like in Austin, that she was leaving with a man named James who lived in Colorado. Nobody had ever heard of him, not her family, friends.
Odd as it was, police had nothing to suggest Julie was a victim of foul play. She was a missing person who they believed would eventually return. But her family knew Julie would never abandon her daughter in this way, and deep down, they suspected something was terribly wrong.
there had been some debit card transactions with Julie's debit card.
Austin police investigating a missing person report on Julianne Gonzalez hoped she would get in touch with her family and that the investigation could be resolved. Julie's family and boyfriend were stunned by her behavior that they knew to be completely out of character. They claimed she would never leave her daughter Layla or the new love in her life.
That Friday she disappeared. Aaron, her boyfriend at the time, received a text. Julie stated that she was sorry, but she needed to break up with him. And we were just as shocked when he told us about it because I knew how madly in love she was with Aaron.
There was still a lot more elimination that had to be done before we actually focused on George. We had additional investigation to do. And it was imperative that we start eliminating people within Julie's circle of friends and family before we focused on any particular person. We still had to start at the beginning with everyone else.
Julie's family continued to press the police to look into her disappearance since she wasn't responding to their texts or their calls.
I spoke to my sister, to Sandra, Julie's mom. I spoke to my son, Michael. I spoke to my mother. And we all could not get a hold of her. We reached out to her friends, to her boyfriend at the time, and no one could give us an answer. Nobody knew where she was. I was also told by APD that we had to wait 24 hours to file a missing persons report. So there wasn't much they could do. Their advice to us was just hope that she comes around or she shows up.
So even though 24 hours hadn't passed, were police concerned about the way Julie left her daughter and family?
After some time, of course, Julie hadn't returned. Certainly she would have returned for Layla, at least. And there was no signs of life activity either. This obviously became a concern, not only for the family, but for the missing persons unit involved in the investigation.
Investigators met with Julie's new boyfriend, Aaron. He described the last time he had seen his girlfriend. Aaron told police that Julie spent the night at his apartment and was there when he went to work. He hadn't seen her since that morning.
I spoke to his foreman. They verified he was there. He was there all day. Aaron volunteered to take a polygraph, which he passed without any problems. And I knew that Julie was in love with Aaron.
Investigators talked to everyone who had been in touch with Julie leading up to her disappearance. The interviews produced no new leads on her whereabouts. But then, police discovered activity on Julie's debit card the day she disappeared, and things heated up.
When did the investigation take a turn?
The investigation started building when we discovered that there had been some debit card transactions with Julie's debit card at a local Walmart in South Austin, and then 2 different McDonald's locations. And certainly the texts, there was text activity on the 26th and the 27th with Julie's phone. There were continuous.
Police requested the closed-circuit footage from the Walmart and McDonald's, hoping to identify who had used Julie's debit card.
And what did you discover?
We discovered a video segment right after the transactions were made of George with Layla. The video showed him walking out at Walmart with the items he had purchased. I don't believe that anyone confronted him with this information at the time. I believe shortly after that, homicide got involved. And naturally, once we start building evidence against someone, we're typically not going to reveal our cards, as it were.
Police now knew that Julie's estranged husband had used his wife's debit card the day she went missing. It was evidence that George De La Cruz knew more about Julie's disappearance than he let on. But police needed more.
He was stalking her, and so we told her, please don't be alone with him.
Austin police investigating the disappearance of Julie Ann Gonzalez began to look closely into her marriage to George De La Cruz. According to family and friends, it was not a match made in heaven, and Julie was firm in her resolve to end the marriage. Did Julie ever have any intention of reuniting with her husband?
At the time of Julie's disappearance, her only communication with him was about their daughter and support. Leading up to her disappearance, he was stalking her, and so we spoke to her and told her, please don't be alone with him.
Investigators subpoenaed the phone records for De La Cruz and Julia to track activity around the time she last texted her family and boyfriend. It was Julia's text and where they came from that grabbed their interest.
Digital forensic detectives mapped out Julie's cell phone activity. He also mapped out and overlaid it with George's whereabouts, and Julie's phone just seemed to be there where he was, with the exception of Julie herself.
The wheels of justice moved slowly, and investigators were careful to not tip their hand to George De La Cruz, but they continued to focus their efforts on him. In the midst of the investigation into his wife's disappearance, De La Cruz did something unusual.
Did De La Cruz do something to increase your suspicion of him?
Julie had filed for divorce and tried, I think she was trying to have him sign the papers. George was refusing to do so. After Julie went missing, George finally signed the papers. In an odd sort of way, I think that was his way of separating himself from Julie's disappearance.
The papers first appeared to be circumstantial evidence, but now the case was focused entirely around Julie's estranged husband. So police revisited the home of De La Cruz, this time with a search warrant.
That's when I first saw the hole in the shed. My perception of it was it looked more like a grave, consistent with Julie's height and her physical stature. And the discovery of the transactions and the text messages and everything else certainly was something that had to be investigated further with additional resources. There was suspicion, obviously, at that point that there had been some foul play, and naturally they approached homicide.
3 years after Julia had disappeared, police finally arrested George De La Cruz and charged him with the murder of Julia Ann Gonzalez. While prosecutors prepared their case, Julie's husband was held in jail. And although he refused to speak to investigators, he had plenty to say to his cellmate.
So what did the cellmate testify to?
George told him briefly that Julie had come over that morning. They had an argument, that he pushed her. She fell and hit her head. George panicked because he thought that eventually that would lead to some kind of domestic violence charges against him. He panicked and that he killed Julie there.
It was enough to convince a jury, and George De La Cruz was found guilty of the murder of Julie Ann Gonzalez.
George has always been number one suspect for me. Never have I ever doubted that it was George. I never thought anybody else.
When such a long investigation takes place, you can't help but feel a connection to their family members. There's a child involved in all this, and I think she deserves to know what happened to her mother. I think Julie's mother deserves to know what happened to her daughter.
The goal has always been to find Julie. Not to convict George, but to find Julie. This isn't about George. It's about, I need to know where my daughter is.
De La Cruz's conviction was some comfort to her grieving family, but they still didn't have her body, and De La Cruz wasn't talking.
I was not going to let her be forgotten or not be found.
George De La Cruz was convicted and sentenced to life in prison for the murder of his wife, Julia Ann Gonzalez.
We, the jury, find the defendant, George De La Cruz, guilty of the offense of murder.
However, he maintained his innocence and refused to speak with the police about where they might find the body of his child's mother.
She's somebody. She's not just a face in the crowd. She's a loved one. She's a mother. She's a daughter. She's a niece. She's a cousin. But I was not going to let her be forgotten.
Julie's cruel murder is compounded by a grieving family which is unable to honor her with a burial. Perhaps someday, Julie's daughter Layla will find out the answer to the question her father has refused to answer. Where is her mother? And now, it's time for today's Safety Spotlight. Julianne Gonzalez was a young mother-in-law who was tragically murdered by her estranged husband, George De La Cruz. Julie's family was aware that George was stalking her and was rightfully concerned for her safety. And while no advice can assure you that you will always be safe, if you or one of your loved ones is feeling threatened or being stalked, consider the following actions. Alter your daily patterns, such as changing your route to work, varying your schedule, or avoiding places where the stalker might expect to find you. Consider consulting law enforcement and inform friends, family, or neighbors about the situation so they can help monitor your safety and provide support. And lastly, contact organizations or support services that specialize in helping victims of stalking, such as the Victim Connect. Your safety and well-being should always be a top priority. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.